Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined with one of the greatest, if not the greatest, voices in country soul. He's a returning guest on the Paul Leslie Hour. He's got a new record coming out. It's an acoustic vocal album, and it's called Bare Bones, appropriately titled. He's a great singer, recording artist, performer. He's a radio personality on Sirius XM. He's got a show, Live Wire. It's a great honor, a great pleasure to welcome T. Graham Brown.
Thanks, man. What a sweet introduction. You forgot to say all around great guy, but I'll throw that in there. Oh, yeah, it's good to be with you, man. You know, you had mentioned Bare Bones. That came out August the 9th, I think it was. I've been spending a lot of time in Nashville this year uh, during all the craziness. And I thought, man, I ought to, because Sheila had been after me to do an acoustic greatest hits album. So I thought, man, I'll get Bobby Terry, who's an awesome guitar player, and Michael Lust to sing background vocals. So I just went in and we basically not, Bobby Terry was so fast. I mean, he was finished by, I think he started at 10 and he was finished by like 2 or 2:30, and then I sang. It didn't take long to do it all. Michael Lust knocked this stuff out in one day. It's pretty simple, but people are saying that they really like it, so I'm glad. I've heard a bunch of good acoustic albums, in my life, so I just kind of wanted to throw one out there and see what people thought.
I was reading in a magazine the other day that there is a trend moving towards simple stripped down recordings these days. So I don't know if you knew that you were actually you were going with the times, but I can understand why in this high tech age where we've got things that are sometimes they're so complex. It's so nice sometimes just to hear something that's simple.
Well, this album is, it's not some big earth-shaking idea or project or anything, but it's really cool. Acoustic albums, I think, are pretty cool because the lyrics are right there in your face. So you can, I sing and always have where you can understand the lyric, what I'm saying, that you can understand, the words. I've listened to a lot of bands and I'll think, dang, what is he saying up there? What is she saying up there? I can't understand. Because I think, the lyric, heck, that's half or more of the song to me. But yeah, these lyrics and the songs, my vocal notes right in your face. So you got to love me or hate me because it's right there.
Well, this is always a hard question for recording artists, but I'm curious to know, is there a track from Bare Bones that you think this is the home run?
I don't know. The fans out there have told me different ones. I'm always partial to either Hell and High Water or Wine into Water, a couple of those water songs. I really enjoy that. But heck, man, the songs on this album were hits for me, and I love them all. I wouldn't even be talking to you if it weren't for those songs. So I'm happy to sing them every show. I still get a kick out of it, and yeah, man, I like them all.
I don't know if you saw this book that Bobby Braddock put out where you are illustrated, or the song is illustrated for Hell or High Water. Have you seen that?
No,
Oh
I
man, what's that?
no, I have not. What do you mean it's illustrated?
Well, there's a book that Bobby Braddock put out where he goes and he explores what he thinks are some of the best songs ever. And I think it was Hell or High Water in there. And he drew, or he had an illustrator, Carmen Beecher, and he writes about that song. And then there's an illustration that goes with it. You should check it out. It's called Country Music's Greatest Lines, but you're featured in the book.
Wow, now isn't that cool? Because I love Bobby. I met Bobby, golly, what a great songwriter. I met him in probably 1982.
Yeah.
I would go over to Tree International. He was one of the writers over there. And I sang a lot of those Tree Writers demos. They had a studio downstairs. A guy named Terry Choate produced most of them. And I would see Braddock. All these legendary writers would be in that building. Harlan Howard, I'd see him. Curly Putman, you know, the guy that wrote Green Grass at Home. Just a lot of Kim Williams, just so many writers walking the halls of that building. It was really cool to be in that building. And I got to know a lot of people that way, man. Singing demos, I got to meet a lot of great writers because I was singing songwriter demos, and the songwriters would 9 times out of 10 be there. So I was, you know, singing their song. I was demoing their song so they could go out and pitch it to artists and producers. So I met so many great writers. That was a fun time, man.
Who would you say is the greatest songwriter in Nashville today?
Today, gee whiz, I don't know. I don't know. I got to be honest and say I don't really keep up with it. Um, I'm so far out of the loop as far as that goes. I hear names every now and then. I think Red Akins is doing really well. I think there's a guy. What's his last name's Davidson. I can't remember what his first name is. There's a lot of them that are writing hit songs, but I don't really know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different new generation of people, artists and songwriters. So I don't really know who's who because I just don't keep up with it that much.
Mm-hmm. T. Graham, what would you say the best compliment that you've gotten as a singer, as a recording artist, has been?
That I don't sound like anybody else. That's probably the biggest compliment I get. You know, I'll be scanning through the radio sometimes and I think, dang, man, so many people sound alike. And I've always been told that when I come on the radio, people know exactly who it is because I don't sound like anybody else. And that's a great compliment. And I've had a wonderful career. I came along at a time where I was able to go out and work with and get to know, and they actually liked me. All my heroes, I tell people I got to work with and get to know all the one name people like Willie and Waylon and Merle and George and Tammy and Conway and Loretta and Kenny and Dolly and all these people, you know, that you've heard of all your life. And so I've had a wonderful career, man. I really have. I'm very happy and satisfied. My wife Sheila and I have been together 42 years, and we've weathered a lot of storms. Um, and this year has just been really tough on everybody, and you know, in the United States. But it's been tough on us because our shows have been canceled because of social distancing, and you just can't get enough people in a place really for the promoter to make any money. So we've had all our shows rescheduled for next year, and I'm hoping we can get out and do them next year. But it's just been a weird year. We've been doing a lot of things that we would have never thought to do this year, especially Facebook Live. You know, we weren't doing any of that stuff, and we started doing Facebook Live shows. We've been doing some things called shows that I host, and it's called Hats Off to the 80s and 90s. You know, the 80s and 90s country music it's kind of seems like to me, I can feel it having a comeback because we had a packed year booked. We had probably the most shows of this year than in the last 50. Yeah, this was the biggest year we've had in a long time. And it's just dumb luck that it got postponed. But I do these shows called Hats Off to the 80s and 90s. The music continues, and we give the money to the Troy Gentry Foundation. Troy Gentry, was half of Montgomery Gentry, and tragically, he was killed in a helicopter crash about 3 years ago or so. Dang, I remember it was the same day Don Williams died. And his wife, Angie, is carrying on the foundation. And so we go to this nightclub in Lebanon, Tennessee. It's just outside Nashville. It's called Cahoots. It's a honky tonk, it's a really nice, clean place. And so I've been able to put a great band together to back up all these artists. So I call up my pals, and they can't really say no because I know they're at home because they're not out touring. And I've had a lot of different people on it. I know we got one coming up Thursday night. It'll be our third one. And I got Larry Stewart from, the voice of Restless Heart, and Tim Rushlow, the voice of Little Texas. I got Ty Herndon, Mark Colley, if you remember Mark. The old jukebox junkie himself, Ken Mellon, is one of my favorite. And we had a special surprise guest, but the cat got out of the bag. So we're having Heidi Neufeld from Trick Pony is coming by. So we have a good time, and I think tickets are like $30. All the money goes to the Troy Gentry Foundation, which benefits breast cancer research. And see, Angie had breast cancer, so that's one of their pet charities, and aid to military families, music programs, and they always have some great auction items, and all of it's donated. The artists don't charge any money. So it's a great, these guys sold millions and millions of records in that era. And you can come to that place and be right up close and personal with some of your favorite artists. So it's a lot of fun. So we've been doing stuff like that, things that you wouldn't ordinarily done. And it's like doing the Bare Bones album. It's just been a interesting year.
Well, as you said, there's been some things this year that, we wouldn't have happened if all this stuff hadn't have come about. I'm curious, what would you say? Because there is always a silver lining, there's always a blessing. What has been the biggest blessing this year for you?
Well, the human spirit, man, you can figure stuff out if you sit down and think about it. Like, for instance, man, a friend of mine has a studio in the basement of his house. It's a little TV studio. He turned his basement into a TV studio. So actually, it's a cool place. And he calls it the 615 Hideaway. 615 is the area code for Nashville, for those that don't know. And so I got together some 80s and 90s artists, friends of mine. Wade Hayes. Do you remember Wade? Wade Hayes, Brian White, David Frizzell, Ronnie McDowell, golly bum. I had Lulu Roman from Hee Haw, who's one of my favorite people, and Hee Haw is one of my favorite shows. I'm on the show, so we did it, and we put it on Facebook, and that thing, right off the bat, it had almost 800,000 views, just crazy, because everybody posted it. And so they put us in for, I'd never heard of this award called the Telly Awards. They have a big thing every year in New York, a ceremony. They had to cancel it, but we were up against Netflix and Good Morning America, some heavy hitters, and we won one. So that was fun. So we just done a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think of. But I think the human spirit, we just keep going, man. Everybody's trying to stay relevant. I'll be 66 in a few days, and I'm having the best time I've ever had. I got a show on Sirius XM radio now that's on Prime Country Channel 58, which is the 80s and 90s country music channel. And I call it Live Wire. I get to play live cuts from my friends' live albums. And I have 6 guests per show. And then I always have a special guest that I interview, but I play 2 songs per guest. And it's like going from concert to concert. If you're listening to it, you can kind of close your eyes, and it's like going from concert to concert. It's a fun show, and apparently it's doing well because they signed me up for another year. So I've been getting to do stuff like that I wouldn't ordinarily thought that I would have the opportunity to do. And you know what I got to do? I've done the Grand Ole Opry about 300 times. But Trace Atkins and a friend of mine, a Southern gospel artist named Jason Crabb, who's soulful, great singer. And the 3 of us were on stage at the Grand Ole Opry sitting on stools. And I've got some pictures that people took. The Opry has a staff photographer, and they took pictures of our backs basically facing out to an empty 4,500 seat empty theater. And it was the weirdest feeling, but in a way it was cool. It's a show at the Opry that I'll never forget because it was so weird. And so there's been a lot of things happen this year that are like one-offs.
I can picture that in my mind. I've heard about those, those shows without the audience there. And as much as there's that little bit of me that feels sad, of course, but then there's this other thing that just, it's kind of, I don't know. There's something about it that feeds my imagination.
Well, it's surreal.
Yeah, that's the word.
It's surreal. And they've been showing there's a new network that the Opry the company's called Ryman Hospitality, I think now, named after Ryman Auditorium, but they have a network called Circle Network where they broadcast the Opry shows. And then in Nashville, they'll own the local Channel 4 here, which is a big, I think they're an NBC affiliate. On Saturday nights, they've been airing the Opry on Channel 4, so everybody in Nashville can watch it live. So it's just, like I said, man, it's just been a crazy year that things happen that would have never happened before, and I've been able to be a part of a lot of it. It's been a fun, other than not being able to go out and make a living, it's been a lot of fun.
I want to share something. The last time that we spoke was back when Forever Changed came out. That last album of yours, which that is such a great album. But I wanted to tell you that when we took the interview that we recorded, it was just audio. We went back to the studio, and Henry Jordan, the man who was my audio engineer in those days, Henry never ever comments, almost never, on the music that we would play. He's just not that kind of guy. But he likes the kind of like soul blues kind of vocalist. Like he's a big Delbert McClinton fan. Mm-hmm. And so when we were doing the T. Graham Brown episode, he was like, I know who that is. But almost every single cut that we were playing of you, he was like, man, that's great. And then we would play another cut. He would say, oh man, this guy is awesome. And then the next cut, man, that is an awesome song. And he commented on almost every single song that we played on that hour.
Well, that makes me feel good. I'm a huge Delbert fan too, and Delbert has been an influence on me. And I was listening to a lot of Delbert McClinton early in my career. I can tell you that much. I don't want to say I've copied him or anything, but he's really taught me a lot. And then, golly, he's become a friend of mine, like so many of these artists. I've been able to get to know him, and I love Delbert. I really love Delbert. I mean, I love him as an artist and I love him as a friend.
Well, on the note of friend, we were talking before we went on the air here, and we have a shared friendship in just a great guy, Bruce Birch. And there have been so many times where I've felt frustrated about something, or I don't know, like I I feel like quitting what I'm doing or whatever. And Bruce Birch somehow would always come through in some way, and I would just feel like, you know what? I got a friend in Bruce Birch. Keep on trucking.
Bruce is a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to the University of Georgia together, and he's from Gainesville, and I went to high school in Athens, and it's only like 40 miles away, something like that. And I didn't really know him that well at Georgia, but he had the nerve to move to Nashville before I did. I was scared to move. I was comfortable down in my little cocoon. I was just saying that when I moved to Nashville, Bruce Birch, and I think, golly, who was his partner? They had a little business called the Saucy Dog. They sold hot dogs. And it was this little bitty place. You'd come up to the counter and buy hot dogs. Well, that was what he was doing. And he was writing songs on the side, just trying to stay alive.
Hmm.
And so he introduced me around to some folks. And, he's had a great career as a songwriter. And then he went down to the University of Georgia and started a music business program. And then he moved back here. I talked to him the other day. He's got leukemia and he's kind of weak. I went over to his place with Ted Hewitt. The three of us wrote a song called Wine into Water. And we had never written another song. We wrote Wine into Water in like 1994, something like that. And we had gone that long without getting back together to write a song. I mean, we'd been together since then, palling around a little bit, but this artist in India wanted us to write a song about the plight of the Indian farmers. So we got together to write that song, and we were talking. And there's a DUI court down in Franklin, Tennessee, about 30 miles south of Nashville, and the judge will call me up and ask if I'll come down and sing. They have a kind of, well, they call it a DUI school, where you go to this school that they have set up, and if you complete the school, they'll take the DUI off your record. And then they have like a little graduation ceremony in the courtroom, and the people's families will come, and it's just a neat little thing. And then the judge is a friend of mine, and she'll call and ask if I'll come down and sing Wine into Water in the courtroom, for these folks. And so Ted Hewitt and I were down there, and he was playing guitar and I was singing, and we were talking, and he said, man, it was like I looked down and the song was already on the paper. He said, I don't even remember writing that song. And I said, it was like that for me. And so when we all three got together the other day, we were talking about it. And Bruce said, it was the same way for me. So some of these songs are just meant to be. And they all come from God. It's a God gift, God gifted me with a voice. And I really believe that God gives everybody a gift. It might just be to smile at somebody that needs a smile. It's like you said, Bruce Birch making you feel better. Everybody has a gift, and it's just a wonderful thing to be able to make people happy like that.
Hmm. Very true. Well, I want everybody to check out this new album of T. Graham Brown, Bare Bones. Also, check out the Live Wire show. It's on Sirius XM Prime, which I think is channel 58, right?
Yeah, and if you have Sirius XM, you can go online and get their free app, and that way you can listen to all the on-demand stuff.
Nice.
You can't listen to the on-demand stuff unless you have the app, and so that way you can listen to T. Graham Brown's Live Wire to your heart's content anytime you want to.
Well, I always like to, I end the show, I give the guest the stage. So this isn't limited to music. You can go anywhere you want. You can say anything you want within reason, of course. But uh, what would you say to anybody who's tuned in listening to us or watching us?
Hmm. Gosh, I've never. That's a. All right, I'll come up with something. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That's the Boy Scout law. Live by that, and you'll be all right.
That's great. And who could argue with that?
You know, man, what's crazy is I learned that was one of the things you had to learn when you were a scout, and that has been so. Like I said, I'm gonna be 66, and that was probably when I was 10 years old, and somehow it stuck with me.
Well, T. Graham, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you.
It's an honor.
If you ever need me, just call. You know who to call. So
Oh, yeah.
give us a shout.
Well, thank you.